this is my second wheel, and unlike Ula, this is not a Saxon wheel, but a castle wheel. And I don't know precisely how the name came about, whether it's stacked up and looks like a castle, or it was small enough not to take up too much space in a castle in times of refuge and war. But it's a castle wheel, and it's a bit more modern. It's a Lendrum, which is made in Canada. And the reason I needed to get this wheel was because they don't make larger bobbins and spindles for Ula anymore. In fact, if you want them, you have to go to someone who specializes in that kind of woodworking with a lathe to have them made for you. And because the orifice was so small, I couldn't put together two pieces of yarn to ply them. So Etta has a much larger orifice. I will never stop laughing at that. I have the sense of humor of an 11-year-old, and I embrace it. I'm also here for fart jokes. But it has different attachments for the head and different heads to remove, so I can weave at a faster or slower pace depending on the kind of fiber I'm using. But I can also ply quite thick wool if I wanted to, and that makes all the difference. So whereas Ula is something that be used for fairly rapid spinning and making very fine yarn for maybe even lace, or the fibers I used in my blanket. This is much more of a workhorse in terms of how many different speeds I can adjust it to, and how many different size heads and bobbins I can put on it to make different fibers. So this is a lot more flexible in what it can do, but I love Ula because she is a beautiful thing and my dear friend gave her. So I am going to show you what it looks like when I spin now. Yeah, that's what I'll do. And it is pretty well known fact that as soon as you start trying to show someone how you can do something, you immediately fail at doing it. So I have all my fingers and toes crossed as I do this. And you can see what happens is that the wheel is spinning just as my drop spindle spun. It creates a pull on the yarn, and I'm able to tease it out of my hand from the fiber, so it twists and makes a pretty strong, pretty fine yarn. I mean, for me, it's pretty good. This is more that blue-faced luster that I love so much. And what happens is that you just keep doing this, and you move this along so that it feeds evenly onto the bobbin, and you keep going. And a lot of cultures will have traditional music or songs that go with spinning to help keep the rhythm. I was not raised in such a culture. I wasn't raised spinning. And some people sing in order to keep time, and I don't sing for safety purposes because snakes will cry and bats will fall from the sky if I sing. So what I usually do is I have a list of music I listen to, and it tends to be stuff like The Prodigy, or the Chemical Brothers, or any other kind of techno that has a fairly consistent beat. And now I'm going to do something very dangerous and attempt to start another piece of fiber on it. So you have a length of the wool of the top, and you break it into smaller pieces, and that's called pre-drafting. And then you fluff up a little bit so you get to the fibers so they move easily enough under your hand. So you have to imagine me up in my office with this, with some fairly loud, yay, look at me, techno music playing. Yay, I haven't been able to do that on command in many of the demonstrations I'm showing folks how I do this at home, but that is very exciting. So you just keep adding wool until you have enough of what you need. And like I said, try and keep up with it. You spin it one way, and clockwise makes a Z curve, a Z spin, a twist. And then when you're applying it, when you're putting the two together, you would make the plying happen in the opposite direction, which would be an S-twist. And it's basically just using all kinds of physics that I don't have words for to put it together. I'm going to stop there because it was going really well, and I don't want to jinx it. And, you know, why would that jinx it? But, you know, you have stories like Arachne, when she is bragging about her spinning and weaving progress, and Athena, you know, flips out and probably throws the spinning wheel of the loom over and turns her into a spider. So, yeah, we have all those lessons in that too, but that's a story I'd like to write, was the Arachne side of things. Probably it's been done already. But that's how I go with this spinning wheel. What will happen next is that I will have a bunch of singles on my bobbin. I will dye them different colors. A great part of that is when, as you're washing the yarn and coloring it, it helps to the fibers strengthen by actually beating your yarn on something hard. It's called thwacking. And I think I have some video of it because it is tremendous fun to do. And it startles the neighbors because all they know is they see you out there with something that looks like, you know, a loop of wool, and you're beating it down. And it really does amazing things for making the yarn a bit more balanced, especially if you're not a great spinner as I am. It helps even it out a little bit, but I hope we can show you some of the thwacking because it is loud and violent, and one of the things I love about doing it. Plus, it's really good for your upper body. I mean, really good. And then once those have been dyed and thwacked and it's hung, and I will apply it, and then I'll try to figure out what this will be. I have enough different types of natural undyed wool that I think I'll probably make another blanket just because it will show off the different grays and whites and the browns and the creams that are really just yummy, and it's really soft too. It's really cool stuff. So far I've only tried spinning wool. Obviously silk is a little bit harder because it doesn't have the same grippy elements to the fiber as the wool does. So it's a little bit slippier, and so sometimes you blend it with other things. Plant fiber, for sure, is something like linen or cotton and other materials like their tree material. I think it's called bast, something like that. And so I'm looking forward to trying those as well. And I think that's all I have to say about Edda. And so let's talk about some other things. We talked about how my interest in spinning and weaving comes from the past, but I also like to think about it in terms of the present and the future as well. Now, I'd mentioned before that I liked studying spinning and weaving because it's tied in with my love of archaeology and history, it's tied in with the past. But it also bears thinking about the present and the future. For example, in terms, I mean, it's been a real rebirth and re-interest in spinning and knitting and crafting in general recently. And I think that is incredibly cool because it teaches people a lot of things about sustainability. It teaches them about different cultures around the world. And I think it's important that we, don't forget that a lot of these spinning and weaving traditions are still incredibly of incredible economic importance to people all over the world, and that this for me is a pastime for them. It's their livelihood and sometimes that of their families. So I think it's good to support projects that directly support those weavers. There are a couple I think of that are particularly good. There's one called anelder.com, and they have a rug show and jewelry show every year, and where you can buy rugs made by Navajo or Dene elders, and it helps them keep their skills alive. It helps them keep them alive. It helps provide them with food and firewood and more wool. I think that's a fabulous institution. and also something like the Center for Traditional Textiles at Cusco to help support traditional Peruvian spinners, both keep the art alive and keep the people alive. And there are similar projects like this all around the world. And I think it's also important to think about the future in terms of these things. Sustainability. Textiles use a lot of resources. They use a lot of water, they use chemicals, a lot of cheap, fast fashion gets thrown out, and I really try to think carefully about how I cannot add to that problem with my interests, my hobby, my pursuits. I try to use materials that I have already had. I talked about recycling some of my yarn to make other better examples of the yarn I was trying to make. I think it's really important to try to make the things that you have. These were all made by wood for the most part back in the day, and so if you have stuff around your house to make a niddy noddy, the thing you use to wrap a skein yarn, I had some PVC, and that's incredibly useful. Just not buying more things, buying or getting secondhand is a great way to do these things. I've heard that people can take old sweaters and unravel them, process the yarn a bit, and then use those to reweave. I haven't tried that yet because I'm still wearing all of my old sweaters, but I think that is a very cool idea. I think it's important to buy from local sources so you're not adding to the burden of the economics of transportation. I think it's also good to support small crafters and producers of both textiles and the fibers whenever you can. I like to give if I'm going to buy something, I like to make sure the company is woman-owned or is very careful about diversity and inclusion, and that work hard to acknowledge the fact that black crafters and indigenous crafters have been left out of a lot of this conversation. I think that's important to keep in mind too, and not just focus on this little narrow part of history, because there's traditions going back hundreds of years that we need to be thinking about. I also like to recycle whenever I can. Massachusetts has a textile recycling program that will take and either recycle the clothing, because if it can be reused, and then take the rest of it and either recycle it into something that is an altogether new item, or convert it into reusable washcloths and rags and things like that. And I think there is a tremendous discussion about what's called craftivism, which I think is really, really important to pay attention to. Often dealing with politics and feminism, and more importantly, intersectional feminism. And a couple of books, because of course I don't like to just do the things, I like to read about them and think about them. One is called Crafting Dissent, Handicraft as Protest from the American Revolution to Pussy Hats, edited by Hinda Mandel. And what I like about this is that it talks about different aspects of crafting in terms of history, in terms of feminism, in terms of inclusion. I think it is a powerful way to put bits of yarn and fabric to use, and I really find it very interesting. One way that was really beautifully realized was by Sonia Clark, and the exhibit I saw with her was Monumental Cloth, the Flag We Should Know, and she did a number of art installations talking about weaving, particularly cotton, and she made some enormous 30-foot square giant replicas of the plain white cotton tea towel that was used by the Confederates to signal their surrender. And she said, that's the flag we should be focusing on. And the neat thing about that was that those installations, when they were up in the museums, also had really fantastic opportunities for the visitors to go and try weaving on these quite amazing large-scale looms. And so it was actually involving people, and so that they would understand what the process is. And it's really incredibly wonderful and thoughtful and thought-provoking demonstration of craftivism. And if you can find out more about her, I encourage you to, because it's very moving work and really fantastic. And I think that's everything I'm trying to talk about now. As I said before, I'm not an expert in this. This is not a how-to, but I have fun with it, and maybe you can see how it informs my writing in terms of when I write about the past, I can embody the actions and the body movements that go with spinning and weaving. When I am writing futuristic fiction or speculative fiction, I can think about the way that there are metaphors in physics for string theory and loopy versus other types of string theory. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on that, but just the interweaving of time and space. So I find it a really quite fabulous pastime, and there's always something to learn, and I love that. So thanks for stopping by, and I hope to see you soon. Hi, this is Dana Cameron. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. If you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to hit subscribe and to click on the bell icon so you get notifications. If you'd like to support me as a writer and creator, there are links to my books with information about them below. You can order them from your favorite bookstore or your favorite ebook retailer. Thanks again.